On reflection, Mr. President, what was the state of St. James football when you came in? What really prompted you to come into football and after your service? What did you see? What that attracted you to St. James football?
Well, having played football at a semi-professional level in England and having administered in football, I believe that some of those experiences that I had would have held myself and the board in good stead. And really, it was really a fact that I believe that with the right team, that we could have contributed in some of the things that I mentioned earlier. And we knew that it was going to be hard work, but if we all pull together, I believe that in time we have a chance of getting St. James back to its rightful position of being top of the tree. It's still going to be some hard work to get there, but in saying that, I believe that we have the vision and we have the manpower and we have the will to enable us to do that. And in doing so, if we do so, then the idea of succeeding is probably the greatest wish of all.
Okay, Dr. Weatherly, beside what the President just said, no. As General Secretary and a member of the National Program, a coach of 2 successful teams, Violet Kickers and Cornwall College, what are some of the factors do you think would spur St. James football to return into the glory days of like the mid-80s and early 90s?
Well, good night everyone. Firstly, I think we need a injection of a lot of funds. And this is and this is a good medium to call on the private sector to invest in football. We need these funds to really move forward. We can have the manpower and the know-how, the technical ability, the education, bringing up the youths, and all those, and the proper facilities. But first thing, to establish the proper facilities, you need money to develop these facilities. You need money to develop the coaches so they can impart the knowledge properly to the youths, because the youths are the foundation of the future, and without proper coaching and the proper teaching skills imparted to them, without proper facilities, then it's like flogging a dead horse. You can go nowhere, no matter how hard you try. So the private sector, I know time's rough, but the private sector definitely needs to give something towards the football. And this is from here we can put things in place to move it forward.
Okay, Mr. Jerry Reid, the elder statesman of the group, you have had a lot of distinguished history in St. James football as player, coach, administrator. In your opinion, what are some of the factors that you think contributed to the decline in St. James football within recent years? You were around in the 80s when we were like prima donnas, top of the pop in national football. What are some of the things that you feel contribute to the decline?
Well, first of all, I want to say good night to the viewers. Some of the factors really contribute to the decline so far is that we do not have the fields because of the build-up of various communities now and more more youngsters than previously. The entire program at that time was that we have the schools, that we have a lot of youngsters coming through, myself and others come through, like Montague Boys School, you have Chetwood and such alike. And at that time, I think the youngsters or the senior players were also more dedicated to develop themselves.
Okay, Mr. Gilchrist, you are the man who is involved in youth program, and Mr. President mentioned youth football, Dr. Weatherly, and Mr. Reid. Youth football must be part of whatever strategy we have in place to develop football. You are the man who is involved at that level for the football board. What is the state of youth football in St. James at this time? And are you confident that we are laying the right foundation?
Well, good night, viewers. But I'll say, Adrian, as Dr. Weatherly said, we need a lot of money to be injected in the program. Presently, we have the VMBS under 12, which has been running for the past 9 years, and each year it gets better. This year and last year, especially this year, we had a very good season of under 20 football and under 17 football, which can be proven from SEBA and Cornwall College. This year Cornwall entered the under 17 and under 20 competition, and Cornwall has won the under 17, came second in the under 20. So you see, we're not where we want to be as yet, but eventually we can be there with a lot of help from the private sector.
On a scale of like 1 to 10, in terms of where you want to go, where would you say you are at?
Well, presently I would say we are at 4.5.
Mr. President, you are the real boss, and further down the line, whatever happens at the youth level is going to reflect at the senior level. You have seen the Under 17 program, I think you introduced it, and also the Under 20. Are you satisfied that we are getting what we want out of those two competitions, the Under 17 and the Under 20?
Well, we had mandated that we were going to do Under 15, Under 17 and Under 20. Due to the lack of sponsorship, really, and as the General Secretary and Mr. Gilchrist has said, we do need a capital injection into the youth programs. We really did not have a sponsor for the Under 15, so we didn't go ahead with that. And really, we amalgamated the Under 17 with the Under 20 as two different competitions. But in reality, the finances could only have covered one of those competitions. As we've said, we're mandated to run the youth programs, and that is something that, regardless of what finances we have to go ahead with. We're far from reaching any kind of stage to which we can be satisfied or comparable to some of the other parishes who have some vibrant youth competitions. In answer to your question, it was a start with the Under 17 and the Under 20, and I believe that some of the teams that participated in it benefited greatly from it. However, we must for next season look at running a full program of Under 15, Under 17 and Under 20. And it doesn't mean that if we do that, next year or the year after, St. James is going to become a force in football again. It's going to take much more than that, and it's going to take a lot longer than that to see the benefits of it. We've started, but we have a long, long way to go to really get to where we would like to be.
Okay, gentlemen, we have our first caller on Sports Plus. Hello, caller, welcome to Sports Plus. Hello, caller, welcome to...
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
I have a question for the President. I'm wondering with previous administration if it caused a problem with funding now.
Caller, we are going to let answer the ear because you are giving us a terrible feedback here, okay?
Alright.
Well, initially there was a problem with one or two of the sponsors, but I believe when they saw those that were elected, those fears were put aside. And in answer to your question, I don't believe that there is a problem, and we've passed that. We've gone beyond those kind of situation that we had. In fact, if anything, we've enhanced the sponsorship. There have been more sponsors coming on board since this new board has taken place. So I don't believe that that has been and is now a factor to getting sponsorship. I think the factor in getting sponsorship is the economy and the economic climate to which we are all enduring. I believe companies have had to be very mindful of their advertising and sponsorship budgets. And I think that really is the factor more than anything else.
Mr. President, just to develop on the point raised by the caller, I know that out in Westmoreland and like in the Kasafa region, the Member of Parliaments get involved, the councils get involved to fill the void created by the absence of sponsorship. I know that last year one of our MPs expressed an interest in coming and serving on the football board, and Senator Madden, I think, was involved in sponsorship of some programs. Besides that little bit of assistance from Senator Madden, has the board been a beneficiary of any help from the political leaders?
Well, let me say this. If you look at Kingston and the way that the Kingston teams are set up, maybe with the exception of Harborview, most of the Kingston teams are set in areas whereby they do have their MPs who have supported them greatly in the enhancement of their fields and other areas to help their teams. We heard recently that in Westmoreland that Dr. McNeil is putting lights down the pool, and Mr. Bly is sponsoring Reno to the tune of about $2 million a year. So you can see that maybe outside of St. James, many of the members of Parliament are aligned to their football teams and their areas. Regretfully, in St. James, outside of the fact that Senator Madden was very helpful in sponsoring about 17 teams last year with full set of gear, we really have not seen anything forthcoming from the help or with the help of our members of Parliament or even councillors. And it is really a sad reflection of how things are. I'm not saying that football boards or individuals ought to align themselves with members of Parliament for any kind of handouts, and we're not looking for handouts. What we're looking for is influence in helping getting us things done. I give you an example. We have the UDC field where $3.5 million has been allocated to uplift and upgrade the field. Upgrade the field, put changing rooms there, and also fence the field. We're trying to get a longer management contract with the UDC, and until we do that, SDF are unwilling to spend that kind of money. And to be quite frank, I'm not in total disagreement with them. So we're trying to ask our members of Parliament to assist in any way that they can to try and rectify this situation. Because if you look, we have 3 teams here in the National and Premier League, and not one of them have a field. So, you know, to start with something like UDC would be a good starting point. I know we could do with a lot more help from those elected officials.
Okay, Mr. President. Dr. Weatherly, you have traveled to Brazil, you have been around the national program. How important would you say, like, the contribution of government is to the success of a program? Because formerly, when there was no money in Jamaica's football, with good footballers, we just did not reach anywhere. How important you feel is government assistance to the...
Well, Adrian, football, the government right now in football is most necessary. In the sense that in visiting Brazil, I've seen where the Brazilian government started as early as in the 1940s, building all these stadiums around Brazil with a minimum capacity of about 20,000 people can hold in each stadium. And this was from way back then, as early as the 40s, or even some as the early 30s. So without government assistance, that wouldn't have been possible. And each township you go into, they have a stadium with lights and running track, all these facilities. While we here in Jamaica, who are doing so well both in track and field and football, there's only one major facility, which is the National Stadium. government needs to really look at the country on a whole and start putting in some funds, to develop the rural areas, Mandeville, Montego Bay, Frome, when even I was back into Portland, St. Thomas, in St. Mary, Draxall. We need the government to really sit down and put some money into these areas and develop stadiums and proper sporting facilities where we can develop the youths for the future.
Right? That's why it's very important for the government to step in. Our MP, they'll tell you that the other MPs are minister of government, but I think our member of parliament can do better.
Okay, well, Mr. Jerry Reid, you were a man that works with a government agency, the Institute of Sports, and as the name suggests, Institute of Sports, it must have something to do with sports. In what way does the InSport contribute to the development of football in a parish like St. James? What programs do you have in place to assist in the development of football?
Well, the Institute of Sports in general, right, and in St. James is the one that has given the basic knowledge of skills with officers being out there, find talent, develop talent, and pass them on. I know for a fact now that it has been coming back already. Institute of Sports, SDC, is on the march again. They have been developing fields across the island, and I know and competition has been started last year throughout Jamaica. In fact, in St. James, all the youth clubs played, and this year they have started again where we try to have the fields in the various community up to a standard to play. But as you know, the fields in certain areas is not as marked as the one, like for instance, UDC or Albion. So what you find is that the SDC Institute of Sports now is now embarking. I think there's a plan now that coming up where they will be targeting certain fields where there are centers, community centers, to revive them back.
Just look at the outreach thing, going out into the other parts of St. James. I know that the FA, one of the high points of this administration, the fact that we have taken football from like a sole Montego Bay sport and spread it into the rural part of St. James. That's a part of the FA's program, decentralization of St. James football. Mr. President, are you satisfied with what you are seeing? Is the process working? I know I hear little rumblings that places like Bakersfield and Cambridge surprising St. James, quality football out here. Is that true? What is happening out in the...
Well, I think, as you say, one of the things that has been more pleasing than maybe anything else is the fact that this administration has taken football into the wider regions of the parish. Historically, as you know, football was basically played at the UDC field, Jar Park, Albion or Cumsea. And some of the fields that we've discovered in some of these outer regions have been to a standard whereby we were somewhat surprised, maybe even better than the ones that we have been using here in Montego Bay. Equally, there are one or two of them that still needs a lot of work to be up to the required standard of which we would like. But those communities mustn't be discouraged. They must be encouraged. And we're very, very pleased about community football. And as we expand into the Division 2 that will be starting early next year, we'll be looking at other areas and other fields that we would like to come on stream. Another pleasing thing to the eye, and maybe Dr. Weatherly can expand on it, has been the quality of some of the youngsters that we have seen in these communities. And it has been amazing when you look at some of the teams in some of these areas and some of the individuals as to the abilities that they have. And all they have really been trying to get is to be seen. And
Okay, Mr. President, there's a caller on the line. Let us see what the caller has to say. Good night, caller. Welcome to Sports Plus. Hello, good night, caller. Welcome to Sports Plus. Okay, just start watching it. Okay, welcome to Sports Plus. This is a new sports program that will be on the air every Thursday at this time. And of course, you are welcome to make your contribution by the telephone. We are discussing football tonight. Okay, Dr. Weatherly, are you satisfied that you have enough talent out there to revive St. James football to where we would all want to bring it?
Yes, yes, Adrian, especially I've been to a couple of games in the Cambridge area, and the youth out there are very enthusiastic and willing to learn. And Hurlock, and on the other side, in the Bartown area, you know, the rural part of St. James, you really see a lot of them playing barefooted, you know, as everybody usually start out, playing with a box juice, box, you know, little things like those, paper balls, or even when you're walking down and you go down by UDC, Albion, the barefooted, kicking a softball, and you know, they are very enthusiastic. Even around the Jared Park at the big games, you'll see them there. And it's just for us really to go there and harness the talent, you know, put them in a structured environment so that they understand football from that point of view, not only from what their little knowledge or what they observe the other talents around us playing.
Okay, we have another call on the line. Caller, good night. Welcome to Sports Plus. Could you speak up and not hear me all that well?
Yeah, I would love to see the football upgrade more in Mobi.
What aspect of the football?
No, kind of young them, the ones that have more exposure.
Okay, well, we have Mr. Otan Gilchrist here tonight. Mr. Gilchrist is a man who is deeply involved in youth football. I'm sure he has something positive to say about that. Mr. Gilchrist, would you like to give this caller here an assurance as to what is happening at the youth level?
Well, as we mentioned before, our under-12 football competition, which is mainly for primary and all-age schools, that is geared towards bringing these players into the high school. And from that, you have your under 14, your under 16, and your DACASA 15. Cornwall has benefited greatly from this. Anchovy, St. James High, where you find a number of players from the under 12 football competition. Players like Leon Mitchell, who is going to Cornwall College, Patrick Wood, who is going to Anchovy, Clyde Morley, who is going to St. James High, and St. James goalkeeper, who is Andre McKnight. You have Richard McCallum, goalkeeper for Cornwall College. So you see, it's going to take a little time, but eventually we're going to get there. Caller, what I can tell you is that in the primary, prep, and all-age schools, we have a lot of talent. And what I see is lacking is good coaches. Now, that age group, you need qualified and patient coaches who can deal with those type of players. Our idea is to have all coaches who want to get involved in these type of football be properly qualified, right? So you see, from that we can move ahead.
Dr. Weatherly, the whole matter of coaching. How advanced are we in terms of coaching in St. James, and what program we have in place to get additional coaches?
Well, Adrian, I would say that we have quite a few number of qualified coaches at level 1. What the GFF is tending towards is the more level 1 coaches more people become qualified as level 1 coaches. Then we push them to level 2 and eventually level 3 and level 4. Those coaches now who are practicing coaches at level 1, by next year or next year and a half, they won't be able to do the same thing now, because the JFF will be looking at using level 2 coaches for high schools and also Premier League, A-League. And we, the FA in St. James, will probably visit that also. So if you are coaching a D1, Division 1 Premier League team, you will need, say, a level 2 qualification. So it is very important for the coaches to make themselves qualified, because initially the level 1 course is an introductory course, and you don't really have an exam or, say, a way to assess your ability or knowledge. So we are moving from that at the JFF, whereas the level 2 you're assessed is a weekend course, between 2 and 4 days, I don't remember, and 3 days, and you're assessed at the end of your period. So if you don't pass, you won't be qualified. So you'll see here now where we are not going for just brawn, but brains also. And to be successful, most of the football that is being played now is not only a physical entity, but also mental entity. You know, you have a lot of knowledge in the game. It's like playing chess. The brain power has a lot to do with it. Football is not just running up and down and kicking a ball. You know, 2/3 of it is knowledge and wisdom. So the coaches also have to uplift themselves. And for us in this parish, we are examining that situation. Also on our next level, also, you know, a lot of people might not like to hear this. We're also looking at the referees. The referees need to get themselves qualified, and those who are qualified don't just say, well, I passed my exam now, so there's nothing that can be done. We are not satisfied that you just coming at the lower end of the referee scale. You yourself should want to advance and eventually become a FIFA referee, a FIFA assistant referee. And we at the FA are looking at them very closely. You can say through a magnifying glass right now, fine-tooth comb. And we have to work at that level, because officiating is very, very important. Not only coaches being qualified, but the referees themselves must be competent. And we at St. James, I think we are going to lead from the front, and so the other parishes will probably come along with us, especially at the confed level now. You know, we're in dialogue so that the referees really understand that, you know, they have to play their part in the development of the sport.
As you mentioned, referees, Dr. Weatherly, Mr. President, prior to you coming to office, I couldn't recall, I've seen a season when there was not some dispute between the FA and the referees. This year went along without any dispute. Maybe there's a formula to the whole process why you don't have the problems that people had previously. What is it that you have been doing for the past year that has kept the referee more or less in tune with what is happening? No disputes, no quarrels. What is the situation really?
You pay them.
Very simply.
It goes further than that, you know. What we must realize, and as Dr. Weatherly said, referees have been a breed unto themselves. But what we must also know and impart, the referees are a very important factor in all of this. You cannot go out and mandate that the coaches be certified, the management of the teams as well. Dr. Weatherly is aware that we're also looking at the management of the clubs, whereby they're going to be certified on the JFF run programs, so that they're aware of all the different intricacies of running a football club. The referees are an affiliate of the board. Just like a club, they are under the directive of the St. James Football Association. One unique thing about them is that they meet every Thursday night, and that's a good thing on their part. But what I have to say, and to expand on what Dr. Weatherly said, is that they shouldn't just go into the referee situation and say they're a referee, and then that's the extent of their ambition. Alden Jackson has recently been upgraded as a FIFA assistant referee, and he must be congratulated for that. And all referees ought to look at themselves and say that is where they want to go. Not that they want to do 6 games a week, Corner League and St. James, and it's a job. They must have the ambition to go as far as they can as a referee or assistant referee. For some of them, and no disrespect, it's too late for that because of their age and everything else. But for some of the younger breeds that's coming in, we have to point them in the right direction to say that this is your ultimate game or ambition, that you want to go to the very, very top, and the very top is being a FIFA official. We've met with the referees consistently. They, as I said, they have a meeting every Thursday night, and we try and meet with them at least once a month. And where they have a problem, or we have a problem with them, we air those problems. And in doing so, consistently and regularly, that's how we've been able to alleviate any of the past problems.
Dr. Weatherly, we must congratulate Mr. Jackson for being upgraded up to the FIFA level since Mr. Butler left the scene. I think he's the first person has gone that far. What is the process? Is there any process in place in St. James to bring new referees into the fore? There are a lot of former players playing in the over 40 competition. Still seem to have a lot of interest in football. Is there any effort to pull some of them into refereeing?
Well, as far as recruitment of referees or recruiting referees, I think the body has taken that upon themselves to do that. But as far as the older players, because you see refereeing now, I think FIFA at a certain age, when you reach a certain age, you don't want to really make you a FIFA referee or a FIFA linesman. Because you see they're saying the game is so fast moving now, and the referee has to be more closer to the ball than before, like within a 10-yard radius most of the time. So you see, you as a referee have to be very fit, like a player. So the age, it becomes a factor. Also, they are moving where most referees have to learn to speak more than one language fluently. You know, those things are becoming a requirement for FIFA. So a lot of people are turned off of the academics and also the physical aspect of the refereeing now. But the refereeing body in St. James, I think they're actively recruiting young minds and bodies. And I see where there are quite a few people coming into the fold. You know, I see where a fellow graduated from Cornwall with some A-levels, Ricardo Salesman, you know, the twins. Yeah, you have quite a few young people coming in, and which is good for the refereeing in St. James. And we can only encourage people who may be good at the high school level in terms of football, but can't make it in the Premier League, in D1, you know, who still have interest in the game, to just join the refereeing. And, you know, right now...
One of the things about St. James football that has been of great concern to us over the years is support. Everybody knows that the general public in football, general public in St. James, really love football, but when it comes to supporting the games on their pockets, that is not usually forthcoming. In fact, at Jared Park, when they go to games, we see the hillside line with people. Love football, but don't want to contribute to the development of football. You have a mission, Mr. President. How much does you see crowd support playing a part in your overall plan for football?
Well, obviously it's a very important factor of the game. One thing I will say though is that always been a problem, and until we look at ensuring and securing Jarrett Park as an example, much more so, it's going to continue to be a problem.
Jarrett Park is one main venue in Montego Bay. It has a limited seating capacity. Jarrett Park, we have to share the park with cricket at times. Do you think St. James football has outgrown Jarrett Park and probably need a home of its own someplace else, maybe that projected stadium out in the catching all year round? What is your view on that?
Well, quite naturally, it's not just St. James football that's outgrown Jarrett Park. It's the clubs themselves. They really need a kickstart to have in their own grounds, or as you say, a new stadium. But where is it going to come from? Right now, I don't foresee that coming from government. The private sector, certainly not. So any kind of innovation is for these clubs to produce and produce players to which they can sell internationally and generate some real income, like a Harbourview situation with Ricardo Gardner.
Formerly, when the park closed, we would have like a Wembley nature farm. Where will we turn when Gerard Park is closed this time? I'm sure Wembley is out of use, and nature farm has always been a problem because of its distance from Montreal.
Well, the good thing about this board, Adrian, is that we have been going to communities to play the football. The clubs need to take the initiative on themselves also, because that's you have to help yourself for other people to come and help you also. So you have to put your foot forward. The clubs need to do that to show that they really are serious. Because in the off season I haven't seen any work done on most of those home grounds to say lift up the standard, and that goes with the level of football that they are portraying also. Because the standard to me is very, very poor. And we need to really have good fields to improve your standard, because if the surface is not good, then you can't play good football at all.
Well, gentlemen, we have been going for like 1 hour, and now we're going to take a little break. Viewers, in a couple of seconds, we'll be right back. Plus, your new weekly sports program, which is designed to keep you abreast with what is happening in St. James. Gentlemen, Gerard Park. We have been looking at Gerard Park, the fact that we might need another venue. But also, we see Gerard Park as our primary venue when it comes to international games. I think last year we got a few international games at the youth level and one game at the senior level. What is the current relationship between this board and the JFF? I know
To believe that because of the seating capacity of the Gerard Park, the JFF are unable to maximize their revenue. And also the fact that when they have tried to play games down here, the entrance fees that they've charged is somewhat short of what they would really like to charge. But in increasing the prices, they do not believe that they'll get the support. So I think those are most of some of the reasons why we don't see more games down here. Obviously, until those problems are addressed, I foresee that we might be starved of more regular international matches here in St. James.
Okay, we have another call on the line. Let us go to the caller. Welcome to Sports Plus.
Hello, good night.
Good night, caller.
Good night, Mr. Evans, Reed, Agent, Agil Street, and Sawadali.
Good evening,
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
One big problem I have in the St. James right now is different. You have like some good ballers, like 15, age of 15, 16, 17. Most of that what I observe, like when I go to our view, I saw 15, 16 trying to make in the big team, but it's like the next 2 more years or so, they're on it. But towards I say down here now, like nobody now care for them or bring them up, or you understand?
I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to let the people who are intimately involved in football respond to that question. Mr. President, Mr. Reed?
Yes,
Mr. President?
as you mentioned Harbourview, I think it's a fact that Harbourview has been building with youngsters from their even under 12. What I find down here, and I have been saying, it's like the teams like Seba, Wadada, Violet Kickers, they should have a feeding program with the amount of youngsters from here that they are from and cheering for them. I feel there should be some management structure set up a their club that they can get to the youngsters from 10-year-old, 12-year-old And here again it come where there's no facility to really have them, to nurse them, like what you see in Kingston.
And just to expand on that, Carla, when you hear the people at Harborview talking about a Ricardo Gardner, they will tell you that they had this player from he was like 9, 10. They watch him through all the stages. Maybe what is absent from our football is that, as Mr. Jerry rightly said, the Wadada, the Seba, the big teams need to have nurseries where you can groom these young players so that they can like come right through the ranks. And I am sure there's more benefit than even having them to play for you. I think if a young player comes through the ranks, that player will have more loyalty to the club. Mr. President, I don't know if you want to expand on that.
I fully endorse what you're saying here. That again, we're seeing some of the problems that have arisen in St. James, as to say why we are so behind. If I may say to your caller, if you relate what is happening in St. James or what has happened in St. James and you compare it to how the West Indies cricket team have gone, you're not too far away from realizing the problems. While the West Indies cricket team were on top, we ought to have been putting in programs to stay there. We didn't, because we felt that the production line was always going to be forthcoming. And now you see with the West Indies cricket team what has happened. Everybody has planned for us and they've gone ahead of us, and now we're playing catch up. Well, if you look at that with the football, where St. James were dominating in the 70s and 80s and maybe even in the early 90s, the Kasafas and the Clarendons and the Portland were putting in programs in place to counteract that, especially at the youth level, while we were still hoping and waiting for the production line to continue. St. James' production line to a great extent has dried up, whereas everybody else is producing. And so that really is what you're seeing. And
Okay, Carla, the caller raised a very important point about where we are going in terms of football and so on. In the mid-1990s, we had like Teagat Davis, Winston Anglin, Durant Brown, Devon Ricketts, Warren Barrett, Steve Malcolm, Theodore Whitmore. Somewhere down the line, Norman Foster came in, Lawrence Kelly Jarrah, all of them played, Hector Wright played for Jamaica during that period. Now, when you look at the current program, we have only Whitmore and Shorty Malcolm. Is it that the talent is drying up, or is it that we are just regrouping to come again? What is the real situation?
Well, Adrian, if you really examine the whole situation at this point in time, you see where you'll find where the clubs, I can say the Western clubs are at fault. Sometimes even my club to a lesser extent. Because since I've been at Viola Kickers, you see we have been using a lot of young talent over the years. And as soon as you groom them, well, the other clubs who have a lot more money than us to pay them, just capture them. And even this year, you see where Kickers has embarked on probably the same type of strategies. We have moved away from development just for this year, so we need to get back in the Premier League and gone and spending a certain amount of money to uplift the club again. But I am trying to implore, charge all clubs around to put development programs in place, because the time will soon come as even rapidly catching up with them, whereas the money alone won't suffice to be attracting players away from other clubs who are developed in those clubs. Because you see with Mr. Gilchrist and I, we work closely with Cornwall College, and if you look now, we have a good group of boys every year coming out of Cornwall. And when we say, well, as you say, send them to other clubs, what are the Seba, for example, they have 50, 60 players registered, and they just give them like a 1 game or 15 minutes and lock them into the system, and they don't ever play again. Like I have a very good player here now, Claude Wheatley, who went to Seba after leaving Herbert Morrison. Excellent midfielder, good reader of the game, close skills, use both feet, can head very well. And he was with Siba for almost 2-3 seasons, and I think his playing time probably even didn't come to one half. Now he's with me at Kickers, and we are trying to showcase his talent. You see, so the clubs themselves need to really examine and see where they are going and what kind of talent they need here and there. They need a defender forward, but don't just go around and do wholesale shopping. Lock up the players and then don't use them at all.
Club level, when the Wada and the Siba, like top of the pack, we had a lot of players in the national program. Now the team's not doing all that well again. We can recognize the fact that they won't have their own field, like the players have to train, cannot train at night and so on and so forth. But would you say there are anything basically wrong with the structures of these clubs? What are some things you think these clubs need to do to get back in the groove? Because there's much more money now. In the 80s with the Bud Marrow and so on, and young Tanto. We were on top of the pile, and now with more money and basically better playing conditions. What is happening to the clubs? What we say is wrong with a Siba? Why is Siba not doing so well in the Premier League? Why is Wada doing well? What are some of the factors that will contribute to the decline in our standard?
Well, first I think we need to set up proper management systems in these clubs. I see we're sometimes even call a club, they don't even know who to speak to. You don't know who is the manager, the president, vice president, that type of. We need to get those things in place first. Then the players need to understand that. You see, if you have proper management structure, when you come to work, you know your salary, okay, and you discuss this with the manager. If you don't work for your salary, you can't get paid. I know Mr. Evans is a very astute manager. When his workers don't come work, I know I'm not going to pay them. So, is that the situation where the players they come and they're sticking up the clubs for money, yet still when they're supposed to produce? Because I can be playing, say, a striker, a goal scorer, say $20,000-$30,000 a month. And when you look at his record for the season, he score 1 goal, 2 goals, and you're demanding prime money.
And boots, equipment.
And plus hospital bills, medical bills, physiotherapy, a really good thing here and there, some perks maybe adding in. And at the end of the day, you're talking about, say, well, boy, now go on for me because money now run. But you're not producing, so you expect money to run. If you are scoring goals, that means if you're a goalkeeper and you're avoiding goals from being scored, then you're doing your work, so then you can demand. But
Mr. President, you spent some time in England. I think you played semi-pro football up in England. Do you believe if we should introduce a semi-professional system in Jamaica that will in some way help to rid us of the problem we have? For example, you would have players tied to contracts where they'll have to produce or you let them go. You think that is the direction we need to go, semi-pro football?
Well, indirectly, we have semi-professional football here right now. There are many teams who...
Well, in terms of collecting money, I am sure it's semi-professional. But in terms of the players giving value for money...
Yeah, I think what we need to do, Adrian, is that when a player gets up in the morning, he gets up and he knows that he's going to work. And in going to work, he's not going to the hotel and work and then come back and train in the evening. In going to work, I mean that he's going to train. He's going to his football club, and that's where his work of employment is. And until we get to that situation, and there are clubs who have already got to that situation, and maybe that's why they're ahead of the game, then I believe that teams in the West who have not reached that stage will continue to stagnate. Aligned with some of the things that Dr. Weatherly has said, the clubs need, as well as good management structures, they need the youth programs, they need players coming through the youth programs, and with all of that, that once they perform, they earn their keep. It's not for the management to go out there and find money for them whether they perform or not. If you perform, you earn your keep. If you don't perform, you don't earn your keep. And I think, yes, in answer to your question, semi-professional football is going to be the next stage of the development of football, not just in the West or in St. James, but football in the country itself.
Okay. For us to like pull in the crowds to make semi-professional football viable, we probably need some bright young stars to come forward. Mr. Gilchrist is the man in the youth program. Do we have any bright young stars on the horizon that we probably can say 5-6 years from now we'll have another Theodore Whitmore, another Durant Brown? Like, there any young player to see out there that you can say, well, this boy is going to become something special?
Well, looking at the Costa Cup right now, you don't really have a lot of them. When you look at Cornwall, you have a little player by the name of Dean Richards. You can see that player has some potential, and if you watch most of Cornwall's games, you can see where he has given his best. And I mean, a couple of years from now, with growth, I guess you might have another Theodore more.
Mr. Reid, you are also involved in the youth football. Have you spot any of these youngsters who you think can go places?
Well, there's a few players apart from that ones like you just mentioned. There's some from St. James College I have seen played 2 matches. I don't remember them. One year number 9, nothing 1 year 17. They look like if get them, you can work with them to develop, right? Herbert Morrison have one player there, but I will go back to the smaller age group where I see a lot of talent there. When I say talent, I mean talent, right? There's a little youth by the name of Lee. I know his father, I don't know the first name. Ikele Lee, that is Cecily's son. A very good player at this age now. But I don't know if he move on to the college, if he will continue. And this is what we hope that, from, as Dr. Willard has mentioned, from one stage to the other. So what you learn at 10-year-old, by you reach 12, you should remember that to move on to 14, right? You don't wait till 14, then you try to put football in them. And there are others from various schools. St. James Prep have some good players, only for them to continue, or us as coaches and administrators to come up with some plans to enhance them to continue their football.
Mr. Reid, you have been around for quite some time. You have seen the ups and the downs in St. James football. The current administration has been in place almost a year, Mr. President?
Just over a year.
Just over a year. How satisfied are you that the football is now on the right track and going places?
Well, I miss it, not because I'm a part of it. As you say, I'm a part of a lot of them coming up. I've worked with a lot of presidents, and to be frank, this one with the rest of board members has done a tremendous job to move it where we can see, yes, we are going back to see Dread Park at Division 1. Can you have more than 8,000 in Dread Park at any given time? When the Steve and the Kickers was there, Wadada, you have a Division 1 match full. So the administration, yes, and the leadership of Mr. Evans, we have put in a lot, and there's a lot more to be done, you know. We have spread the football in one, and that thing has given us the high hope now to see more players coming in. And the entire board administration, our administration part of it, our upkeep and our finance and also our working habit has been above the rest. You know, so I have confidence that it will continue, and unless something dramatically happens, that this board really go down. But I can assure you that we are in for a long run and long development.
Well, okay, gentlemen, we have been going for a little over 90 minutes. We have completed one ball game
Extra time.
and a little bit of time added on for extra time play. I am sure the viewers out there will be satisfied that the current administration has enough plans in place to basically ensure that, at least for the immediate future, our football is in safe hands. I myself, as a bystander, I have seen a lot of changes in the image of the parish's football, and I'm very pleased about it. And gentlemen, as a football fan, all I can do is to encourage you to continue. It was nice having you here tonight, and I am sure the general public quite satisfied that there's a little note here from the producer. It reads, the St. James Parish Church invites you to annual Grand Prix Christmas International Supper at the Dr. Cave Bathing Beach on Thursday, December 7, 2000, between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. Music by Mark and Sandra, V2 Band. So, okay, viewers, this is it for this week, the first edition of Sports Plus. Looking forward to the upcoming week. All the best. Go out, enjoy yourself, and be good sports.